The Georgetown Planning Board, March 28th, 2018 meeting, Memorial Town Hall, third floor. It's a little bit after 7 o'clock. We have minutes, 2 vouchers, some correspondence from Newbury. We do not have any public hearings. We do have, from the planning office, we have discussion of the as-built approval plan for Turning Leaf subdivision. The second item is discussion on East Main Street Recreation Park. And the third item is a recap of Monday night's meeting with the Board of Selectmen on the Cannabis Control Commission's municipal guidance and our zoning amendment. So with that, we'll go to the minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
Make a motion to approve the draft minutes of the March 14th, 2018 Planning Board meeting, subject to any corrections we may make.
Second.
Motion's been made and it's been seconded to approve the meeting minutes of March 14th, 2018. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 yes. Vouchers, there are 2.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the 2 vouchers as presented in our packets and cited on this week's meeting agenda.
Second.
Motion has been made and it's been seconded to approve 2 vouchers in the amount, one of $100 U.S. postage meter, the other Staples office supplies in the amount of $53.25. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Correspondence, Town of Newbury, no actions required. Does anybody have anything they wanted to talk about on that? Okay, nope. So, moving on, we're gonna go to first item under Planning Office, which is the as-built plans for the approval of Turning Leaf. I see the attorney here this evening. Good evening. And John, if you just wanna give a brief overview, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, as stated in everyone's packet, comments report for tonight, Dave Varga, the field inspecting engineer for the planning board, has favorably recommended acceptance of the 3 roadways within this subdivision. And there is a motion to that effect if and when we get to that point this evening.
All right, thank you. Did you wanna say anything?
No, I just was here in case there were any questions, and I did want to ask what your process was for doing the release of the balance of the tripartite. I don't know what your process is for that, so I would defer that to just that question to the board, or ask that question to the board.
Okay. So I just want to highlight, it was on Dave Varga's letter, page 2, his conclusion. In my professional opinion, the construction has been performed to normal construction tolerance and in accordance with approved plans and subdivision approval. I feel that Lisa Lane, Vineyard Lane, and Grapevine Circle are suitable to be accepted as public ways in the town of Georgetown. So with that as our technical review agent's review, to the planning board, looking for any motion.
Just one quick question.
Yep.
Again, page 2 that you were on before. Bullet item number 12. It points out that he's looking for a tie distance to be shown on a plan because there has not been a bound set between lot 18 and lot 19. And just wondering why. I mean, this is 2 years now. And so those two abutters aren't going to know where their boundary line is?
I believe that might have been added. That was an original comment, and then isn't that his final review of March 2017 plan? Plans are acceptable. I think they did do it.
Yeah,
That-
the
It
final
was-
comment in that one.
Yeah, so what it was, Mr. Cotillier, is Locatelli, excuse me, that he had made the initial comment, and then
Right.
the response was the plans were updated to show the tile point.
The tie distance, but
Yep.
it's, so they're taking one and another doing offsets.
And I believe that's what they did on the March, yeah.
Yeah, but the bound isn't in.
I don't, where does he say that? The tie distance will provide a simple and clear way of reproducing the missing bound point, and then when you reviewed the March 17th plan, it was put in. That's my understanding.
I don't see, Harry, where he's saying the bounds aren't in.
Well,
I mean, I read it there, but then he
He's saying
says,
show the distance from the
plans.
northeast bound to the missing bound.
then he says the plans are acceptable.
Because we redid it in the March 2017 and 2018 plan, and I believe we added that information so that the missing bound point was.
Right, you added the information so that someone can take a point and
Yep.
arrive at the bound. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, we're lucky we have Larry Graham here. So, I mean, essentially, it's, the distance has been shown on a plan,
Yep.
but the bound's still not in. And I'm
So how
I'm
do
just
you,
wondering
I don't-
why.
I don't know
how
how
do you know
to
the
figure
bounds
that
are not
out.
in?
Because it says the plans are acceptable,
Yeah.
and all he was asking for was a tie distance.
And they were put on the
And
plan.
so those are put on the plan, the tie distances are put on the plan.
Harry, if I understand you right, you're saying that he said that he would ask for a workaround for not having the bounds put in,
Yes,
and they did the workaround, but they
Right.
didn't do what, to your estimation, should have been done.
yeah, well, I'm
Am I
just wondering
understanding that
why
correctly?
a workaround was necessary instead of a hole in the ground with the
Tie
bound.
distance, no place measure.
Do you have a copy of the as-built plan that may or may not show that particular item you're talking about?
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. I mean, at the end, I just want to clarify something.
Okay.
At the end of all of the outstanding issues in underlined language, he's reviewed that particular issue and he's specifying the plans are acceptable.
And I understand that, and I think Harry understands that. I think what Harry's
get
saying,
it.
though, is that they're acceptable with the workaround, correct?
Yes, I mean, the plans are acceptable to Dave, that because these tie distances are existing, we have offsets. So here's where the bound should be. We have a distance to this point, we have a distance to that point. We can find that. But my question is, why isn't the bound in?
So my question is, how do you know the bound is not in? I know he says the bound is not in, but then he concludes the whole paragraph with saying the plans are acceptable. And I guess then I would like, if that's your question,
I
I'd
think
like to
he's
confirm.
differentiating between the plan
Oh, he is.
and the as-built. As the
I-
actual
in
build, the
reality.
actual.
Yeah,
Oh, no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, you can't tell from this paragraph, or I can't
I can't either.
assume from this paragraph that those bounds are not in. So if that's something you want to, I see it said, Harry, that the bounds are not in, but then he concludes the paragraph by saying the plans are acceptable. And when I read that, to me, I'm looking at that as a general statement he made just to take care of that paragraph. So if your concern is the bounds aren't in, we should verify if the bounds aren't in. If that's what we want to do. I'm just saying, I'm not going to assume.
Yeah,
that
the
they're
the
not.
other thing, we could take action on this. We're not moving, and I put that in the staff report. The applicant has not requested the release of the remaining surety. So we can hold
So we
that
can do
money,
that.
and if there's
Yeah,
any
verify.
outstanding issues, they're not gonna get it back unless they address
Okay.
all of these issues that may be outstanding because Dave wasn't as clear as he should have been.
Right.
But in the end statement, he's saying that everything's acceptable.
So how do we ensure that then, John, if we go ahead and, follow your motion to move this forward, that that item, if it is outstanding, is addressed?
We'll get a better written clarification from Varga.
Okay, and our teeth in this is the surety.
Correct. Yeah. So when they come looking for
Everybody
that money
okay
to
with
be
that?
released, we won't release it unless all items have been clearly defined as being complete.
what if the request isn't made until after town meeting when the road is accepted?
But I have to.
We still have the money in our hands.
And I also have to say that.
He doesn't.
This is, the acceptance of the town roads has nothing to do with the delineation between the 2 points. I mean, private citizens can remove bounds between their properties. So the only thing we're asking for is that the town proceed because of the time frame to accept the roads, and you can get your chapter 90 money. So that's the only reason. We still, if there are items that we haven't fully complied with, we still have the bonding amount, which is why I asked, what's the actual process? Because I've never requested a bond release until the town actually accepts. And then usually there's something, and then I get the money. But it always is after for these very reasons, because what really is important is, are the streets compliant and will they meet your requirements so that you can get money for them?
So, I see that, we can proceed ahead with Dave Varga's approval here of that.
Sounds like it, as long as there's no impediment to you installing the bound after the
Oh,
street is
no,
accepted.
not at all.
We just
Fine for
delay
me.
it until the bounds are done.
Well, we have town meeting coming up. This has to go from our recommendation to the selectmen to then get it on the warrant. And we don't have to tie them together, Tilly. There's no reason to hold this up when we can take care of this later.
Well, you can pass it on, but come town meeting, it should be done. Or we can pass it over at the town meeting.
May I make a crack at the motion, and I think I can hopefully address this in the motion? I move to approve the Turning Leaf subdivision as-built plans as prescribed by in the field the site inspecting engineer Dave Varga in his attached letter addressed to the town planner dated 20th March of 2018, and to recommend to the Board of Selectmen in regard to this subdivision the following, as spelled out in John's motion, and further to recommend to the developer to please consult with Dave Varga to ensure that the bound as set forth on page 2, number 12, has been installed.
Second.
Okay, so motion has been made and seconded to approve the Turning Leaf subdivision as-built plans as prescribed by the in-the-field inspection and by the site inspection engineer Dave Varga in his attached letter addressed to the town dated 20 March 2018, and recommend to the Board of Selectmen in regard to this subdivision the following. Upon receipt of a written favorable recommendation from Town Council concerning the Turning Leaf subdivision title certificate, copies of deeds and other instruments, street acceptance plan, the draft warrant article and proposed deed to the town as prepared by the applicant, the Board of Selectmen will take the action necessary to accept as public streets the 3 streets within the subdivision, namely Lisa Lane, Vineyard Lane, and Grapevine Circle, to accept as public the drainage and site distance easements associated with the lots affected by the same with this subdivision, and forwarding this matter to the form of a warrant article for the town meeting to decide at the 2018 spring meeting, and
that the applicant, in consultation with Dave Varga, address page 2, number 12 of Dave Varga's letter to ensure that the bounds have been properly installed.
as stated.
Got it.
You okay with that?
Absolutely.
Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Aye. There you go.
And then what is your process to request the bond at the end? Have you, I know you haven't done
Writing.
very many.
Yeah,
That's all you
request.
want is just after town meeting or any time? After we get the bound?
Afterwards. I mean,
Well, that's why I didn't do it before. Typically, I don't.
Well, there's 120 days before all this paperwork is done. If it's not completed within the 120 days after the vote at town meeting, you don't have it except at road.
It's all done. You already have it all. I just have to have them signed. We need you to approve before I can issue a deed, that's all.
So you probably won't get the money at least until 120 days, hopefully everything.
No, I
will be
didn't know
done.
your, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, we have the second item of 3 items up, planning office, review status of the East Main Street Recreation Park. See Park and Rec is here tonight.
thing goes flat.
Huh?
No, I'm just talking.
So, you know, we don't have a quorum tonight. We're a 4-member board and 1 member's away.
Oh, you brought us a gift? We've been so good?
Better not be brownies associated with the next topic.
I don't know. We can talk about this later.
So, John, if you just want to give a brief introduction to this item, and then we can go to,
Okay. As reported in the comments report, the largest set of documents were provided to board members electronically only. Those were pretty extensive, and I hope everybody got all of the copies of the attachments. and-
More than we wanted.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's a lot
Very
of
thorough.
data. Where we left this at the last planning board meeting is that we were going to have the Park and Rec Committee come here before us, have a joint meeting, and pretty much try to hash out as much as possible the outstanding issues, and to see if there is a possibility of the park as a result of this meeting being usable for recreational purposes this spring. And Larry was requested to be here. The unfortunate thing, we didn't have any weather conditions that were cooperating, allowing for bare earth to be examined. It's still under snow cover. Probably have a couple more days before that's gone. But for this meeting, and Larry is here to speak for himself, but both of us were trying to get down to that field, and there was a small window of opportunity before that storm hit, and we weren't able to get down there. And we're just waiting for the snow to melt to actually make some in the field observations that some of these potential allowances to possibly allow the park to be open for this spring could be verified once the ground is out of there. And I think the discussion tonight will get to that point for us. And can I just bring this up? One of the issues that, from the last planning board meeting that I've been bandying about with Larry is it was brought up by the chairman that the narrowness of the portion of the driveway leading into the park being 12 feet in width and physically depicted as that on the as-built plans, may be too narrow relative to safety purposes, safe vehicular access, whatnot. There is one point to be brought up that, again, I was talking to Larry about. This is a recreation park. You want traffic to move as slowly as possible throughout the park, taking into consideration how many pedestrians, and a lot of them being children, that'll be running to and from. And what I'm getting at is that the narrowness will help to slow down traffic, which narrow roadways do. That's a benefit of narrow roadways. Now, the question is, are the shoulders solid enough in material that they can allow for a vehicle to move over to the side for oncoming traffic? Most of us have traveled down narrow roadways before, and guess what? You can't turn over to the side, and you can't travel in both directions because it's just too narrow. You have to be have enough courtesy to pull over and know when you are allowed to move forward. So what I'm getting at is that narrowness could actually work to the advantage, especially if the shoulders are strong enough to support a standing vehicle while the other one passes. So if that's really the only stumbling block of not allowing this park to be open, we may be able to see through that. And a field inspection, once the conditions of snow are gone, we can,
Can I make another quick comment?
One second.
and we can, Larry and I can go down there and recommend one way or the other, or also drag the, not drag, but invite the fire chief down to go along with the inspection and see what his opinion is.
Okay.
All right?
So,
So I think there's two issues too, as far as there's practice, there's using it for practice and then using it for scrimmages of games. So practices would just be people dropped off and they practice and they get picked up, and that's what I'm just saying, there's two levels of traffic would be involved. So in your consideration, I would just think of that, that's all.
is there anything, before we bring it to the board, is there anything that you wanted to just give as sort of an overview, Jimmy, about this, where we are right now? Or do you
Well,
want us to
I did
just
walk,
jump-
I did walk the location in that little window, because I saw that there was an email about 12 feet. I did not find the 12 feet, but, there seems to be on, if you go around the fence area, there's the roadway, and then there's a rain area collection. And there's a difference between small stones and big stones. So the idea that someone would, if that is the area that's encompassing the 12-foot width, you'd basically pull over into the big stone area, which would be, but I haven't had a chance to, see Larry Graham's report or anything,
Okay. So I think what I'd like to propose is that basically start to identify what the issues are and talk about them and see if we can deal with each one as it comes up. And perhaps start with Larry with his concerns, and then we can go to the board with their concerns and do it that way.
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. Everybody's talking about a 12-foot area, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't scrutinize the as-built. Shame on me, but I remember being down there earlier, and where is the
So why
this
don't we,
12
so
foot?
we're gonna go through all of
And
these
that's one of them.
individual points,
Okay,
and
that's
that's one of them, and we'll clarify it.
When it comes.
Yep,
Thank you. I'm just not familiar with where it is.
yep. So, with that, I guess, Larry, do you wanna?
Sure. I haven't been down to the end of the site for probably a year, under construction. And some, good work had been done the last time I was there. As John said, I haven't been there this winter.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Okay.
John, so for minutes, taking track of items that we identify, are you gonna record those based on the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a guideline, or?
A what?
So I'm gonna get back over there, I just wanna pop
No,
up
we have no
the,
list.
park
This
area.
is, here you go.
Keep
So-
talking.
So
Okay.
we're making the list as it goes.
Sounds good, sounds good.
So, I was out there probably about a month ago. I couldn't get past the gate at that time, and then as John said, we missed a small window of opportunity before the big snow came, and I've taken John's advice that, it's not ready to be looked at. So what I did was I looked at the progress as-built plan that I believe the board has in their possession, versus the approved plans. And I really see three items that, to me, would be at least cautionary flags about opening the park for the public. And they are, one, the narrow section of road, which John has already opened up, talked about a little bit. And two, in that section of road, something I can't tell by looking at the plans, whether or not the existing, or the guardrail exists along the southeast side of the road. And three, if this is opened up for the public, where people are going to park, because according to the progress as-built, the 89 space proposed parking area is not constructed, and the existing gravel parking area down near the dog park is constructed on the proposed or the approved plans. That was only laid out for 10 parking spaces. So you have, one, the lack of parking, two, the lack of a adequate road width, and certainly if you're going to use the road for parking because you don't have anywhere else to park, you don't want it to be 12 to 16 feet wide in the 300-foot stretch here that is essentially opposite the proposed parking area. That's kind of a summary of what
So we're not really, we're not really prepared to do this, I can tell. Harry, this is, so you can,
you want to use this one, I've colored in where the arrow, but you can look.
use that,
Essentially, it's from the gate
use that.
all along where the parking lot would be.
Yeah,
If it were
it's opposite where
constructed?
the parking lot and the skate park would be. That's the section that's 12 to 16 feet in width, according to scaling it from the as-built plan. Other places, there was, the approved plans were 20. You get down toward the dog park, and I'm scaling 18 feet, but, 18 feet. But the other thing that I see here, again, just looking at the plans, is that the guardrail is right along the southeast edge of the road, so there's really no available space to pull off of the gravel and even allow someone else to pass or to provide parking along, parallel along the road.
So why don't we take one at a time? The 12-foot wide zone, is everybody familiar now where that's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I apologize. Could you just hold it up again and point out to me where the soccer field itself is?
Well, this is the ball field right here.
Okay.
This is the proposed parking area. And that narrow section that I scale from 16 to 12 back out to 16 feet, essentially along the edge of the parking, where the parking was.
If you're driving down, the pond's on your right. When the pond ends, I think that's when the red section you've highlighted there ends? Yeah, okay.
so everyone's familiar with that. Does anyone have any particular concerns they want to talk about the 12-foot? And if not, I'll jump in.
I don't have, oh, sorry.
Without them walking on it, how can you tell whether that's even too soft to get a car there? I mean, it's not, what is there to make it durable enough for a car?
Well, I don't know, not
That's right.
having seen it, but I'm going to, make an assumption that what they're showing on here is the existing gravel drive of the variable widths that I've scaled is, has been done to support a vehicle. I think the question is, as John stated, is there ample shoulder space to support a vehicle if one needs to pull over to the side to let opposing traffic pass?
So has Park and Rec paid for, which road did Park and Rec pay for? Did they pay for the road that was designed per the plan? Or did they pay for the road that was built?
We paid for the road that was designed by the plan,
So you paid for, so the town bought a road that's supposed to be 18 feet around, and it was not built.
I think it's
18
20.
feet. 20.
20 according
So,
to.
so the town owns on paper, they paid for that, but they
Right.
don't have it in terms of what was built.
Well, yeah, my Gale Associates was supposed to review the drawings as bidded and come up with discrepancies weekly between what was bidded and what was not done. There was a situation with some roots at one point with the soil was one and different issues. But yeah, the width of the road was strictly, I mean, and they call out certain sections of the road. He's building this section of the road now, he's building this section. So, there was also some tree work in that, so I don't know if there's that width of that road became narrow because of all the construction work to take down the trees and de-stump them.
Okay.
So I don't know what the status of upon them leaving that site, but adjacent to that road is where all the clearing of the trees came in and the bulldozer came in to.
Well, so the reason I'm asking that question is I just want to make sure that drawings are done and that's what you own, that's what the town owns, and that's what the town paid the contractor to do.
Correct.
And he built a road that's not that width. So they've given him money to do something that he didn't do. So that's just one point that I want to make, that road I think should be put in according to what the plans call, for that reason. Also, I just couldn't disagree more strongly with my beloved town planner in terms of this 12-foot wide issue. You have no idea in terms of, this is on a turn, you've got basic health, safety, welfare, you've got children moving around, you've got cars, you've got people in a rush. I would not feel at all comfortable putting the town in position to accept liability for accepting a park with this road in that position. Further, the liability to go to the drawings that were approved by the planning board, which is 20 feet wide, and to have it built at 12 feet wide in some sections, and then for us to go ahead and say somehow that that's okay, that's just a liability that's just waiting to happen that I'm not comfortable putting the town in that position. And then related to this is the issue of when you talk about the shoulders, I don't know, and no one will know if those shoulders are strong enough. Not that that would be a reason to accept the road narrower, but the only way you're going to know those shoulders are supportive is that there's been some sort of testing along the way of what has gone in, what has been installed, and that it meets compaction standards. And I don't know what we
You shouldn't be
have for
parking
that.
on that section. That section, the shoulders aren't strong enough for you to park on the side of the road.
Okay.
You can,
So-
along the
so-
fence line, you can park.
Okay.
But that
Okay.
would require you to go all the way to the end.
Okay, well,
Turn
so
around
what I
and
was,
back.
I was responding to John's thought that maybe that could be used as a way to pull off to the side, and so I don't think that one holds water for me. So, on that one issue, that's where I, as one planning board member, fall.
Can I ask, and Larry, you have the plan in front of you there, and just from when I looked at it just now, where you have it highlighted and where it's, not the 20 feet. My understanding is if we were driving into the park, the pond would be on our right.
I don't think the pond is on your right.
There's two ponds, you gotta be clear. There's a
Well,
swamp, one's
that pond
one's more of a
is-
swamp, the other one's more of a pond.
Right.
Isn't, okay, the wet area?
Swamp to the
I'll call
right.
it the wet area, the wet area to your right.
Probably high now.
And all along is the guardrail.
Yep, on the
So
right
that,
side.
you can't go off any further to the right.
Right.
But to the left, if memory serves, and I don't think it shows on the as-built, but I believe it shows on the actual plans, the approved plans. To the left is where your parking area and the entryway and all the curbing is gonna go. And you're looking at, naturally, we're looking at the as-built, what's on the ground. But I believe that might be the reason, like Jimmy says, when it got cleared, when that area got cleared after everything got in.
Yeah,
So
he got some
You
equipment.
may not have shoulders now,
He got
but
his
once the
equip-
parking lot's in, you will.
He got
Well,
equipment
that's where
stuck in
that'll-
that area for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of trees, it was raining, we had one of that rainy, and he had his logging truck in that general area. So, I'm not defending what was done before that, I'm just saying, you should try to see what was the minutes. 'Cause he talks about construction of road in the 12 letters we got it weekly. He was talking about constructing the road and this from here to here, from here to here. So it seems strange that they wouldn't have measured the width when they're talking weekly about that construction of the road.
So so the only reports that I have that, and maybe you provided some other ones, were through, I think it was through Field Report 11.
Yeah, no,
And so that, I didn't see that addressing this issue, any of those reports.
okay, so there wasn't a section of roads in those field reports?
There was nowhere in there that talked about the road section here is being built. I reviewed it and it's thumbs up.
Okay, because I read this, all right, it might be from email, I'll have to go back and check on where I saw that, but there was okay.
Because, and just please understand that we rely on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
technical review agent to review and tell us, and then, so,
I would think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, when you go out there, if there would be a way that you can put a no driving sign up until it's done and have people walk in there to play.
Well-
If the field is
well-
good,
I would suggest that I don't think it's ready for games, people from out of town.
oh, it's not even ready for that.
But if there was somewhere where a coach could go down there and park it, and the
Yeah.
two coaches, and the people practicing could not stay, the parents could not park there?
Well, I-
Because you can park 4 or 5 cars along the fence along the fence.
Well, I
It's
would,
not shoulder, but no more than,
you see one car and then they're all gonna wanna,
well,
that's
yeah.
gonna be tough to,
I
but
agree,
maybe Reverend McLaughlin would allow that in the interim, just for one coach, one practice.
I'm not sure, that's a tough one.
Well, I think,
He's put up with it for 15 years, and
well,
one of the things he
haven't
did.
we all?
No, I know. I mean,
So, I would say just so that you can use it, that's my goal, is to make it usable. I'm not
So-
interested in this.
I know. I think the shoulder is more stable at the top of the hill going with the Todd section. But like you said, that section is not, the shoulder's not stable enough in that section for.
Yeah, I
So
would,
so,
excuse me.
yeah, no, I think, I'd like to make sure we address all the issues, and I think
Yeah.
it's great to try to, you know, see if we can come up with ways to get the park open, but I want to make sure we address these issues first.
Very good.
One thing that comes to mind for me, though, is particularly with practices, you have a time when everyone comes in, and then you have a time when everyone goes out. So granted, it's theoretical, but the amount of cross-traffic for practices, to me, seems pretty minimal.
You usually go in a half hour. In the old days, you delay it. There was a time, and then we were so busy, the games were back to back, that you would have to establish a half hour, 45 minutes, so everybody clears before everybody comes in.
I'm just warning you that it only takes one, and if we approve a road that is different than what we approved for plans, and there's an accident, the first thing that person's gonna do is he's gonna come after the town. I'm just warning you.
Sure.
I've seen it before.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
No
plan,
question.
if
I
we
don't
didn't have
disagree
the
with you.
plans that weren't approved, this would be different.
but
But those plans were approved.
the reality is, if somebody gets hurt on town property, they're gonna come after the town regardless of anything else, right?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to add more
Yeah.
possibilities. So I guess my question to the board is, how does the board feel in terms of, do you think the road needs to be widened or not?
Oh,
I think
yeah,
it does. I
the
think we should, I think we should get in there right away and get it wide. I don't think it's
Yeah.
that, I think it can be done fairly get someone local. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be more than, I don't think it has to go out to bid even. To take 6 feet wide along that section and widen it.
Just make sure he doesn't give you another bill for that.
Oh, when you say he, you're talking about going back to
Whoever
man?
whoever's doing the work. Because you've paid for this work already. I'm assuming Manta's gonna correct his work?
Well, we gotta talk to Gail about whether that work, what the status it was before the construction. Manta's gonna say the people with the logging truck did the damage during the construction of that area, de-stumping all the stumps and, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we're talking about 2 years ago that this work was done. And we hired Gale Associates to come in and say this work is done correctly. I'm assuming Gail's gonna say the work was done correctly, and I'm assuming Manta's gonna say, he left that job 2 years ago.
Well, would you provide Gail's communication that says they,
I'll see if
That
I
road?
got the stick, yeah, I've sent him some of the stuff that I've got, most of the stuff I've got, but
so I just have to say, Jimmy, I feel like I go around in circles on this, because I can't tell you how many times I've asked for that. And,
no,
and
I've sent everything, I spent
I-
a weekend, I've sent everything to John.
I understand.
I'll
I
go back and
understand.
see if I can find whether they talked about that section of the road or.
So that would be very helpful if you can get that, and the way to do that is who is the gentleman in charge for Gale?
John Perry was.
John Perry. You don't want to talk to the secretary, you want to talk to John Perry directly. And it is not, they have everything in their files, and it is not, it'll take him maybe an hour of his time to dig the information back out and get it to you. So there should be no reason why they say they can't do it. Okay, so that's the road. I think we're gonna get it fixed.
Regardless of who, when, where, there is enough room there to widen the 12-foot varying section now.
According to the
It can go
as-built.
that way, and it would go into the parking lot.
Correct.
No, right now, the edge of the road to the
That way.
parking is probably 15 feet or so. According to the approved plan, though, that's green space and a sidewalk that goes in that 15-foot space. So you've got some room to widen the road, but you've got to leave room for that sidewalk that was approved through there.
I'm not following, Larry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Forgive me, I'm sorry. So drive, if I was walking or driving down the road, I'd have the wetland area, I'd have the guardrail, I'd have 12 feet coming across me, from right to left, and then there would be a,
There we go.
I didn't ever saw it.
This is the approved plan.
yeah,
So
okay.
you're coming in this way. This is
Yeah.
the parking area not constructed, and this is a 4-foot wide permeable pavement sidewalk, that dark band that comes in. So what we need to do because it looks like the guardrail's already been set, and you don't have room this way because of the guardrail, is widen that 12 feet out another 8 feet, to 16 another 4, into this area before you get to the walk. And right now, it looks like we got about 15 feet according to the as-built to do that.
Oh, okay, okay, so there is adequate room
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
okay.
but without, pushing into the parking lot.
But right now, there's nothing there anyway. That was all grubbed out and just flattened out.
Yeah.
It's not to grade, I mean, there's some grade, there's gonna be some raising grade in that corner that, where the truck got stuck, maybe some shoulder work, it might be 2, I don't know what the grade is, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet, some areas, you'll see it.
Okay, so that was, so the road issue, I think has been discussed and resolved. Larry, what was your second item? It was parking?
Well, along with the road was the guardrail. If the-
Guardrail?
If the guardrail, as depicted here, and it sort of looks like the line with the little circles ends in that pinch point. There's no little circles, but the line is there, so I presume the guardrail's all the way through? All the way through that narrow stretch?
Yeah, I mean, the guardrail goes down, yes, it goes
Okay.
down, yeah.
So if it's all the way through, back to what I just said, you can't really widen the road that way. Everything has to be widened toward the parking. And you don't have pull-off room between what's the edge of gravel now and the guardrail for at least 50 or 100 feet. So you're only able to pull off, as it is right now, toward the parking area. So there basically is no shoulder on the southeast side of the road.
Can I ask, Larry, in your opinion, how much of that area would need to be filled? I mean, I know the bid hasn't gone out for the parking lot and the rain garden and all that stuff, but I'm not saying a stopgap measure, but what would it take to fill that, to create that 20-foot wide, safe access way?
Fill what? Why would you be filling it?
I thought Jimmy said it was
build it up.
subgrade.
Filling this area.
It is.
You take the
Very
15 and
shallow.
turn it into 20, there is a lower grade on
Yeah.
that corner.
I can't really tell.
I couldn't figure out the.
from these
the
grades.
You can't.
There isn't much variation between the left side and right side of the road. They're all right at about 89, elevation 89 to 91 through there. I don't know what that left side looks like.
And we won't know till we get boots on the ground, right? Till you get your eyeballs down there.
But whatever it is, that's the only place it can be widened, so whatever it takes is what you have to do.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I'm just wondering if it's possible to do something like that on a temporary basis until we get the bid out and actually complete the way it was designed.
Well, I think the answer is that everyone's in agreement, the road's gonna get widened before this is opened.
Yeah,
So there's no issue.
yeah.
Right, right. I'm just wondering if we're gonna be doing the sidewalk and the whole parking lot, or if we're
Well, that's-
just widening the
Oh,
road.
That's
That's the next
discussion
phase.
item
Yeah.
we're talking about, that's the
Okay.
parking lot.
Good segue.
So, parking?
Yeah, I mean, there is no parking, and because of the narrowness of the road and the questionable status of the support ability of the shoulders, I don't think you want to plan on parking along the road. So the only parking that's shown on the plan that's finished is down by the dog park, and the approved plan was only 10 head-in spaces there. I think the rest of it was to be used as a cul-de-sac or turnaround for emergency vehicles.
for a
So
fire truck.
That's why it's not laid out to maybe afford 20 or 30 spaces, which might be, you might be able to get 20 or 30 spaces in there, but it's an odd shape. It's it's 95 feet wide or so, so you could only park left and right and straight ahead, so you might end up getting 25, 30 spaces. And then you're gonna lose the ability as a turnaround too.
So if the parking lot has, if it's mostly full and you have some people driving in, are people gonna be able to jockey in and out of their spaces with a car coming in and whatnot? in that
Depending on
scenario?
how, and it's gravel, how you lay it out, but you could,
How would you control the laying out of that in gravel?
well, you don't, I mean, you can't line it.
It's gonna be,
The approved plan had 10 spaces head in, like so, into the dog park area. But if you wanted to maximize parking here, I mean, you could let people head in and park this way, head in and park this way, you know, lose some spaces in the corner and a few this way. Like I say, maybe you got 20, 25 spaces in there, but then you don't have a turnaround there for emergency vehicles, so. This gravel parking as is not really what you need for this. That's why you have this in the design, 89 spaces up here.
Jimmy, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think, I mean, our next project is to grade the parking area and start the parking lot for, you know, we know that's the fault, that's the.
In terms of though, opening, trying to get this open sooner rather than.
Well, my
later.
concern is your concerns. I mean, once again, we talk about games. I don't think this is gonna fly. And even if we repair that road, the question is then in practices. I think I don't think the dog park could, you know, be open when practices are there. That shouldn't be open. But I think possibly in practices, you got 10 or 15 cars. It's town people, you know, I mean, once that road becomes 20 feet, I think it's a viable possible option. That's my only.
So you'd like to see if the road could get, if the road's widened to 20 feet, you'd like to see if we could open this with the parking the way it's shown currently?
Open it for practice only.
Yeah?
For,
Yeah.
and allow the parking lot and along the shoulder and the fence. Now, my question to you is, so there's the roadway and there's a swale area, which is the large gravel stones along
The
that?
infiltration trench?
Infiltration trench. Will that get damage if cars park along that?
Absolutely.
You know, it shouldn't be compacted, which is what's gonna happen if cars park.
Can I just mention that
And
as
once
part
it,
of
and
our.
once it's compacted, then you gotta
Okay,
work
no,
what
I
you're
just,
putting
so I
in.
wouldn't, that's not an option.
We fully knew that going into this. As a matter of fact, there is a prohibition in our special permit from parking on the road. That's prohibited.
So I
just ask, it sounds like we're gonna widen the road. Can we go further out? I mean, I know that there's curbing and a permeable sidewalk. It sounds grandiose. Would it be possible to widen the road in that narrowed area and just keep going a little bit further to bring it up level, compacted, hard, maybe not as grandiose and as well laid out as we had envisioned in the original plan, but good enough
But
to
once you-
create a parking lot
Once-
on a temporary basis.
So once you do that, once you create a parking lot, once you redesign the original design and create a parking lot, as you're talking about, you may take away the ability by doing that to come back later and do the parking lot the way you wanted to because you've now constructed things in places that they shouldn't go. So the only way that I would go along with an idea like that is that you know if you're going to show a plan that's enlarging this the way you're suggesting, widening it the way you're suggesting, that there's also the plan is showing how the rest of it is gonna be addressed and how they've been combined, so that you don't box yourself into a corner. That's the only way I would go along.
I'm wondering, does it have to be as grand as it was envisioned? I mean, I know it was 100 spots, and I remember
Well, I mean,
that from the.
No matter what we
the
do,
park
that
grants.
area is gonna have to be stabilized and brought up to grade, no matter what goes there. I mean, so, I mean, our next chunk of money is to bring that area, the total area of usable area up to grade and with the rain garden as designed. And then there's, of course, we know there's certain things going on about what, so it will be, that's what we have money for. We were hoping we have enough money for, so. And that will stabilize the area, allow parking, and have the rain garden for the Conservation Commission requirement.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
that-
as your CPC representative of the planning board, I can tell you Jimmy has asked for and it has been recommended by the whole CPC for $60,000 this year.
And we have an additional 80 still from project, so.
So on the existing gravel parking area, how would you, I think there was some handicap parking for that, as it should be. And those have to be paved.
Okay, yeah.
So if you are going to pave those, you're now starting to take this blob of gravel and you're starting to say, here's how parking is going to happen. How are you going to control how the rest of the people start parking in this gravel parking lot? Because you can't mark it, you can't stripe it, you can't do anything. People are just going to come in.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was some actual curbing supposed to be put in. If you look at the,
Well, the proposed plans have it all laid out really
yeah, I mean,
nicely,
that,
but
the
the as-built.
proposed plan is where we ultimately want to head to.
So-
Oh, you're saying temporarily between just the parking lot and the final plan? I mean, we're still following, the end goal is to get that project as designed.
I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just get on this same page of, there's this idea of trying to open this park, and what needs to be done in order to open this park, and the road widening is one of those. And I'm thinking that this existing gravel parking area, that has to be done
Yeah,
in
no,
the same way.
we agree.
Oh, you agree?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I'm just saying it's gonna take a
Then
couple of
there's-
years of CPC money to get to that effort.
All right. Anything else from anybody? Larry,
Perseverance, Jimmy. Perseverance. That's what you got.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have a question.
please.
Can we open the dog park?
I would think you could use the dog park if people are gonna walk in there. But the handicap parking issue is something that you can say the board, I wouldn't. The board could say, look, it's not important that the handicap parking space is made usable and accessible. And then if that was the case and the board felt that way, then, and that was the majority of the board, then you probably could open the dog park.
Okay, now if we put in handicap parking and hot top it, do we have to put in sidewalks to the dog park itself as for the handicap?
For the park, you lost me.
Okay.
Sidewalk coming from the
You
main
come in
road.
and you're on the left side of the dog park, okay? You put in 4 handicap spots. Now, do you have to put in a sidewalk so someone with a wheelchair can get into the dog park?
No,
Okay.
not that I don't think that was part of the drawings.
Yeah.
I don't.
So,
No, it wasn't.
Why then
So-
do we have to have hot top parking spaces for handicap? Once they get out there on stone, and as soon as they walk to the
Because-
front of the car, they're on stone.
Because it's where the car parks, it's where the wheelchair gets out of the car, it's how someone at least has the opportunity to get there. Once they're there,
We really don't have much control over that. It's the ADA requirements.
I know,
You
but
know, we're kind of
I
locked
mean,
in.
in a perfect world, if this were a public park that went through the traditional process, you would have handicap accessible pathways throughout the entire system. This one doesn't.
I see, because when we had the beach, we were lucky we had I think it was every 9 feet, we could go up a foot for handicap to get up to the men's room at the beach. And that's what saved us. But one of these meetings, we were told that they had to have the hot top so some wheelchair person could get to the area.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, if it's pretty focused.
I'm in a walker, but I'm actually.
I'm sorry, could you
My
introduce
name
yourself?
is Nana Hadley. My husband and our enormous dog would love to use the dog park. I am here because my husband would rather die than come to this meeting. Sorry, but I figured somebody ought to come. And what I was hoping would happen is we could split the dog park off away from the rest of this. I can't speak to other people with disabilities, but I know I am not taking Howard the Huge, who looks like a small horse, out to a dog park. But my husband routinely undoes the lock and goes and uses the park. It's a great exercise location. He loves the fact it's in town. And what he has found is that it's a completely different demographic than the parents of the soccer moms. And so by opening up the dog park as soon as possible, you'd be opening up the dog park to an entire different demographic. And they might be more on board with, you know, okay, well, we have to wait for the rest of the field, but as long as we get to use this, it's something. So I particularly don't care if there's parking or not. I know the ADA is all over it, but the dog park being separated, and we put up a Facebook page less than a month ago. We have 75 members on that page. So there's 75 people in this town who care enough about what's going on that, though they're not here, which is Georgetown, they are like, report back to me, I have to work tonight, I have something going on with my kid, I gotta take care of my mom. And they are all eager to find out if we can split that dog park away from the rest of everything else. That's just my 2 cents of what I can say.
Thank you. So I think that's something to, you know, put on the table. Where is there a way to maybe carve the dog park out to open, and maybe in that regard, we just have to identify what needs to be done to do that.
So we do have some issues with the police signage and rules and regulations that so, you know, knowing that, well, you know, there's quite a bit of work to get that approved. So we can, and we have been working on it. There's new bylaws and stuff. So if you think that's a possibility, let us know, and we'll expedite that process as well to get, you know, make sure they have rabies shots, make sure dogs, you know, there's certain rules, dogs can't go in there with.
Is there a
actually,
bylaw?
it's 2 dog parks. There's actually a dog park for the big dogs, and there's a separate area for the small dogs. I don't, you know, I mean, that's sort of, sometimes someone with a big dog think they have a small dog, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Could I ask a technical question of Larry? Did you have the plans there? Well, I'm envisioning the dog park and the enclosed area of the dog park. So what is it? The entire front of that is paved? Is that what's showing?
Just the 2 handicap spaces are paved, and the 8, I imagine it's 8 or 5 feet in between the 2 handicap spaces.
And that's
paved.
directly in front of the gate? Is that where that is?
And I
Yeah.
think Peter, I can call
the
Peter
parking-
Durkee, and
is
we
the
can get
parking
someone
lot,
down there to pave that.
Paved?
I'm not saying Peter will
No,
do it,
no,
but
it's
we
just
can
it's all
get that
gravel.
paved.
Yeah.
Someone will have extra material on the end of their truck, and
Yeah,
if we put the head out to Peter to find a way of getting that paid, and we'll pay for it, they'll find someone they're gonna start paving pretty quick.
Yeah.
And someone will have an extra ton or, you know, ton and a half left on his truck, and
But it does call for that to be flush granite curbing perimeter, so, you know, so you have something that differentiates the pavement from the gravel.
okay.
So that would have to go in first before you start paving.
Unless you just did a pavement mud mat, like, temporary.
Temporary.
Yeah, and then you could always bring it up to real grade, add more depth.
And just put it on the list.
And saw cut it. Install your curbs, and then come up to grade.
I just caution, you know, taking the approach of these what do you call a mud patch?
Mud mat.
Mud mat.
Mud mat, yeah.
Mud patch.
Done all the time.
Yeah, that it's the board needs to weigh at the end how many of these, you know, kind of fix-its we want to do to get the park open versus having to then pay to do something again. So it's just something to keep in mind. Larry, was there anything else that you had?
No, those are my 3 items.
Okay. I had a few items, Jimmy. One has to do with basically the installation of the gravel drive and the installation of pretty much everything like the fields and whatnot. So the only way we can verify that what has been built is according to the plans. The only way we can verify that is that someone during the course of construction is observing it and testing it. I haven't seen that information yet. I've been asking for it for a long, long time. My hands are tied until I get that information. I am just one planning board member, but I'm not gonna approve something that I don't know what it is.
Can I just interject here?
Yeah.
Forgive me for wording it this way, but can we cut out the middleman? Can you talk, would you feel comfortable talking directly to Gail?
I don't have time.
John does. Maybe that's the move. Maybe that is the move. John,
Or Larry? Or
John, or Larry to, what did you say, the Perry? Jim Perry?
John Perry.
John Perry? Maybe that's the
Now,
move.
the technical review agent would be the person to do that. It's an excellent idea. He gets paid for it. He could do that. Yep. It's an excellent idea.
I'm just trying to,
I think that's what you gotta do.
next step, you know.
Make it work.
Would,
I think that's a good idea.
and I don't wanna
that's fine,
overstep,
that's
but,
fine.
you
No,
know,
it's good.
there are technical issues that the two technical people should get together on.
Yeah.
And in the event that that company that was supposed to be looking for it didn't do it, or failed to do it, or lost the data, then we send Larry out with the compaction test.
And we send this whole project to our town council for,
That's later.
find out.
Right now, let's get the park open,
I agree.
you know?
So, there are two, on the as-built plans, there are two existing stone infiltration trenches that run the entire length of the paved driveway, the existing paved driveway. Were those were added? Is that right? It looks like this is saying it was added as part of the project. How,
It was added.
why was it added on the side that was where the sidewalk was gonna go? Do you know?
No, I don't know, I don't remember anything being, like that scope being added, subsequent, after the approval process.
So the approval drawings called for a stone trench on the church side as you're going in. So it'd be on your right-hand side. You go past the church parking lot. There's the guardrail, and then there's a stone infiltration trench. And that's part of the proposed drawings. And it looks like that was put in. But on the other side, they put in one also, which is where the sidewalk is supposed to go, and I didn't know what that was about because it's a very different construction detail. They're gonna have to pull that out.
Well, maybe, excuse me, but maybe that's the sub-base for the sidewalk. That
Could be.
was mislabeled on this as-built.
Could be. So that would wanna be, that would be an item to,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
about this.
In that case, you could potentially park there temporarily if that's the case, because it's not an infiltration.
Good, it's a long ways from, it's all the way up at the head of the drive, though. It's up by the church.
Has Conservation Commission, is there any issues, have they seen this at this point, like where they are with this?
No, I've got, so originally Steve saw this and he thought it was Larry's report, at which he blasted it as being incompetent. I said, no, it's just the surveyor's as-built. This isn't Larry's work, so. So I haven't gone back to Steve yet, and knowing that, I mean, he just, you know, he thought it was just a, you know, he thought the as-built drawing was his whole report. So once he got cleared up that that's not the case, he doesn't have a copy of Larry's report now.
So Larry doesn't have a report.
I don't have a report
Well,
yet.
he will, or he'll have something.
Something's gonna have to be summarized from this meeting tonight, which is
Yeah.
kind of why I asked who was taking.
Yeah,
track
I'm
of
sure,
this.
I'm gonna have to go to Steve. There is some things that are off. We have the temporary generator that we know is there. You know, so I've got to stop in and see Steve on
So
this.
I guess, obviously, you can't open this park unless they're okay with it too. And they have their jurisdiction to take care of. Let me see, okay, but still more runoff. So on the lights coming up that you guys have, and I see you brought those tonight, can you clarify who owns the light?
So after they put the stone wall in, we realized the stone wall had certain aspects of along the border was actually partially in the church. The church gave us a easement, which is the easement all along their parcel. So from the stone wall to the inside the church property, I think it runs 10 feet. We have access as a utility easement.
Is that a permanent easement?
Yes, it's actually, yep, and it's been filed, and, so we actually, then there was a concern about people sliding down that hill and somehow getting into traffic, so a split rail fence was put up as a safety precaution because of that. And then there was a concern about lights, having some sort of, and my original plan was to try to do some solar lights, and which I bought one, and we put one up, and it didn't seem to throw enough light for the church, and I think even Rob thought it wasn't enough. So going from,
I didn't see it.
you didn't see that?
No.
All right, so going off from the, going from the solar light, the park and rec members decided they wanted to put a actual power to those lights, and the easiest way to do that was to go off the church lights. And since it was church property, they didn't have a problem with us drawing power from their lights, which stay on till 2 o'clock at night, and then they go off. So power was brought up along the fence from the church's light. And we are in the process of putting them up, but those lights are purchased by the Park and Rec. They will maintain them and the bulbs and everything, but they were purchased by the Park and Rec.
So I guess so do you have in writing with the church, I guess what I'm wanting to make sure the town's okay with is that if lights are going in and they're part of the design, that if the lights break or whatever need repair, that they are fixed. And I'm just trying to parse
Yep.
apart. It's like the church owns the power, you own the town owns the fixture. That's
Yeah.
gonna need to be clarified and written.
Yes, remember the fence had the same issue. I think there's a general statement, but I have to check. It's the same thing was the repair of the fence, because it's also,
Yeah, would be the same issue.
be the same.
You have, that's an agreement that you have in writing with the church now?
With the lawyers, yeah, we had town council look at it, and I'll get you a copy
Can
of
you
that.
provide that to us also? Because that's something that would be, I think, important. And did you want to talk about
Yeah,
those
so
lights?
we knew the concern at the time. The church got about 3 books, and they went back and forth a number of different times. So they only agreed on one light, and it was this light, which could take any type of bulb, whether it be LED or and it's basically, it will sit on the fence post, and you'll be able to put any, and it screws in. And they are all ecstatic about it. I would not have thought this would be what they would have chosen, but that's, but it seems to be what they want, and they're all in agreement. And there's every other post will have one of these. So there's 2 ways. I thought we'd either put one up to see how it looks and get your approval, or, possibly.
I think that whatever they wanted,
Well,
Yeah.
that's
If
an
the
option,
church
too.
is happy, I'm happy.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
We can do an LED, whatever we can do. I know you're talking about 2300K or 3000K. We're fine with
I
that.
think probably the best way to do it would be to put it up and take a look at it. I mean, the style of the fixture is a subjective call, and if they, if that's what they want and it makes you guys happy, that's fine. My only concern are the issues of glare and uniformity, if you're going to be using that. So probably the way to deal with that would be to actually hook one up and everyone take a look at it.
Okay.
What's the timing on those lights again for on the lights?
They stay on to 2 in the morning. That's when their light, they have their church light goes on at till. Now when it goes up from the bottom of the hill to the top, it's on the other side of, doesn't go down the road. It goes from the bottom of the hill to the, okay,
To where that ends, to that fence ends.
where that fence ends.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Eileen Seberg, Pillsbury Lane.
Thank you.
And I have one more question. Are those lights that?
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Just, they don't glare up, they don't add to, is that one of the considerations, that they don't add
Well,
to
at the
the?
time, they're on the other side of the United Phones building. I
Yeah.
don't, we only got 6 of them, we don't have 12.
Right. No, I'm talking about night glare, not.
No, I
not my
know,
bedroom.
I can't answer that. I think if we put one up, we'll know.
Okay.
I mean, the way, I would hope that some of the lights being glared by this, but I'm not sure.
You can
We'll,
see
Jimmy,
this.
we'll see when you put it
Mr.
up.
Chairman?
We'll see, yeah.
Can we just specify that when it's put up, the LED bulb in it is what color? What
300.
temp?
Well,
Or-
3,000 or less.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
let's be specific about that now so that we don't.
I'm really glad to see it's a frosted bulb.
Yeah.
That's gonna make a huge difference.
It's funny, I did that same work on fluorescent lights inside the building. We
Yeah,
had problems with bugs, and 3,000 was, there was the difference between 2,300 and 300 fluorescent bulbs for the.
it's
bulbs.
amazing.
Makes there was a big
Yeah.
difference.
FYI on the dog park, I think it's in part of the 100-foot setback, the wetland buffer, and that wasn't part of the plans. So it's on the as-built, but on the approved plans, it was shown outside of that. So that's
That's
probably
fine.
gonna be something that comes up with Conservation
How
Commission.
close is it, 96, 90, 80?
Hard to tell.
Okay.
Can we review that? It's in the wrong place?
It's, well, it's slightly pushed beyond where it was supposed to be according to the drawings, but that's consistent with what we have in as-built. The road's not built correct either, so it's just part of, this is like a construction job that's halfway through. And they have
No,
to-
what I'm saying is, in other words, it was supposed to be a certain distance from the wetland.
Yeah,
And Larry, what's the deviation there?
It was supposed to be right on the 100-foot, one corner right at the 100-foot.
Where is it?
And at that corner
this is
right
40
now
scale.
is
I've got about 20 feet, the worst corner.
15 feet into it, into the 100-foot. So they're at
Okay.
85 feet, they were supposed to be at
Oh,
100.
they're 85, they're still outside the 75, okay.
So that's something you're gonna wanna,
Wasn't that plan drawn up under the old wetlands plan before they did it by satellite a year or so ago, and that's why the 10-foot or 15 feet is different?
the plan.
It's irrelevant.
So
When the
you-
planning board, when the Conservation Commission establishes a delineated line on a plan,
Yes.
that delineated line is the line.
Wasn't that plan put on the old wetlands plan?
Sorry.
Both plans say delineated by Rimmer Environmental.
Yeah, and that has to stay consistent throughout the whole thing. There's no change to
Well,
that.
that's scale slow.
We're hearing that a lot.
No, no,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, trying to think how to,
Looks like the dog park was supposed to be 40 feet in width, and it's, on the as-built, it scales 60.
that's a little bigger than.
So, looks like it grew into the,
So Jimmy, so I have a number of items, but they're all details that almost come after you get the road widened and this part fixed. So I don't think it's worthwhile going over them right now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Looking at it from, and I've been on the CPC seeing the money go towards this project. At this point, Jimmy put the bid out, the Park and Rec put the bid out at the last time to pretty much finish this park up. And it came in, I don't know, $100,000 more than you had or something like that. 200 grand more than you had.
176 more.
Thank you, sir. At this point, I know some things have been done, so that bid will probably get a little bit lower. At this point, though, I think it's really important that the Park and Rec completely knows everything that, every deficiency that's there, everything that needs to be fixed, to add that into the next bid to complete. So that when they bid it, and they finish it, and the dust settles, it's done. Done.
And they know what
So-
done is.
This next
They
bid
know
is,
what
this
done
next
is.
bid is not gonna be able to encompass this, the sidewalks. I mean, we're gonna have future bidding that's,
How are you going to, communicate to the future bidders, the changes that have taken place, i.e. the as-built versus what you have on your original design documents? That's
Well-
that's a tough one.
yeah, and we haven't had to because this is, the next bidder will be the first person that has to deal with that. Right, I mean, for instance, we're gonna bring this road up to grade and hopefully those grades will hold and we'll have,
So to Harry's question though, is this bidder going to be doing more than just getting the park opened as quickly as possible? Or is this bidder going to be doing everything to finish the park?
no. We won't have money to do it. Right now I'll have 140,000. 140,000 won't open this, we'll be able to blank
So-
slate the parking area, so it's, the soil's stable and the substructure's stable, and the rain garden is placed, but that should be it.
So you need then, in a perfect world, you need a set of drawings that say this is what we want built to get the park opened for the field and on this temporary basis, and then you're gonna have another bid going out to do the larger picture and finish
Yeah,
everything?
I would prefer to do it in two, yes, because that would, so if you had a list of things that had to open the park, I would prefer to be able to go back to the town and says, I need this for this to open the park and this to finish the park. It's because right now we're taking five, we don't want to go 5 or 6 different bids, it's just getting,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah,
It's
it
a lot
sounds
of-
like
it's a
you
lot
want
of
2 more
time.
iterations.
We want
of
to
the
open the
cycle,
park and finish
and
the
that's
park.
it. Yeah.
So will that be compiled with Larry
as-
at this, as review? Can this be done through him?
That sounds like
Yeah,
a great idea to
Larry,
me.
Yes.
Larry's going to need to put together a report. I'll share with him my notes that he can incorporate or not if he chooses not to. Those will be his calls, and he should have together a report that will tell them what they need to do at a minimum to get this park opened and
And
For particular usage too, I think it's important, you brought that point up earlier, I'm sorry, Larry,
Okay.
but you made very clear the point that this is to have scrimmages and practices, not to have 2 full clubs out there at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I would think there's there's a minor scope and a major scope, and I think there's a big difference between 10, 15 people went out for practices and 35 people with their parents and kids and grandchildren
Right.
watching a scrimmage.
And out of towners
and other
everything.
out of towners is
Right.
is a big one there. Yeah. Another item that does need to be, this needs to go on I'm saying it to the cameras so that you pick it up in the notes, but another item that needs to go down for all of this is that town council needs to advise us on what is this legal mechanism for us to take what was a special permit, and how do we approve and be legal with a partial built project that may or may not be consistent with the original drawings. And so that's another piece that we have to
Sure.
address.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't know how to do it.
And there might be some sort of precedent you may not want to get involved in
I
going through.
don't know.
I don't think we'll see you again.
No, I'm just saying, what happens what happens if it opens a gate for somebody else, though?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you got
Noonan's
75
opened that gate already.
Jimmy, you got 75 names that she said was on the email list. So get 10% of them to help you out.
Yeah, well, the other thing, since I am on TV, we have 4 members and we should have 7, so if anybody's out there who wants to get involved, and
I think
and a
you've done a
wonderful
lot.
experience.
Yeah, you've done a lot, Jimmy, and
So,
we
you know,
appreciate
we're
it.
looking for more members.
What was that, Jimmy? The Park and Rec has 3 openings,
Has
Yes.
3 openings.
and parents
Yeah.
could help the town by
Yep, and if someone wants to
calling
get
the
involved
select
in
board.
Get on the
Children
Facebook.
online.
the greatest thrill on earth,
Oh, yeah.
just-
other than the planning board and
The
the
same
conservation and all the
people.
other departments.
It's the same people. Yeah, John.
I just want to, I'm probably the one person in this room that feels like he wants to eat a lot of words, and that's what happens when somebody speaks first. without hearing Things. And typically, I do try to speak last after I've heard everything. You know, the best part about what is going on is that you're not starting from scratch. Okay, there's work that's been done. The project hasn't been done. And as much goodwill as everybody would like to exhibit and allow happen to have the park open this spring, to say the least, and to state the obvious, it's completely premature. You know, if we were dealing with the subdivision and somebody wanted to build a house out in the middle of the woods without the roadway being grubbed, you know, an access way being put in properly in order for fire safety, I mean, we would not entertain it. Okay, this project doesn't come close to being completed as it was approved. Nowhere in any other project, whether a commercial site plan or a subdivision plan, would we be entertaining the use of the structure, whether it was a house or a Dunkin' Donuts. Being so far away from being completed. And it's really sad that it's been, just to be completely honest, mismanaged in its construction. So it's a much bigger project and a much more costly project than what was envisioned at the beginning. And a lot of projects end up being that way. They, you know, you think you can do it for 500,000, the reality it's $1 million. And I think everything was underestimated. No supervision was going on relative to completing the project in accordance with the approved plan. I mean, it's like somebody didn't have the drawings, but just had a vision of building something out there. Because they obviously didn't have a set of drawings to build what was supposed to be built.
The total is gonna be 1.3 million. We had a spreadsheet.
We knew how much.
Yeah.
But no one believed it.
You know
No
what?
one believed it.
Yeah,
Everybody said it was gonna be half a million.
All big construction projects, all they are estimates. Name one that comes in online. They don't. There's always overruns. Here we're dealing with the situation. As good feeling, as good willing, and as helpful as we want to be. I mean, how do we go from the state of this thing right now to even coming close to envisioning this thing being safely open?
That's what Larry's gonna tell us.
Yeah.
Right.
Point
And
by
that
point.
you need to finish the project in accordance with what was approved, unless, you know,
Maybe the
technically, and this is what we would have to do as a planning board, we would have to be working towards and working with the applicant to amend the original approval to a different
That's gonna
type
hap-
of project.
That's gonna have to happen, I think.
I also think though too, knowing that I'm on the CPC, we're almost paid off the bond now for the synthetic turf. So we may have a 2-year window if the town really wants, and remember, we get the rail trail coming in very quickly too. We may have at least a shot at the next year of getting some decent CPC money to at least get it open and get the money needed. Now, I don't know when exactly the rail trail is gonna catch fire, but that's a year or 2 away. And once that happens, so, I mean, I think next year is our year if
You better move.
remember, it's not only a recreational area, it's also the ponds and there's other projections
Beautiful
of what
beautiful
things,
stuff back there.
you know, so, I mean, we really should hit hard in next year because I think there's gonna be some, you know, there might be a lull and who knows who's gonna suggest projects, but there's the bond money for the synthetic turf's gonna be almost up and I mean, we've been paying about 300,000 every year for that and we'll have 100 and something left of that, so maybe the year to, you know, get on the horse and try to get this area open.
Okay, so I guess
Just
the
one question.
conclusion.
One
I have a
question of the
question.
board,
Yeah.
since I'm gonna be the guy, it sounds like, that's gonna be making this recommendation. What is the board comfortable with respect to the number of parking spaces to open the field for the purposes they stated this evening.
I'm only speaking for myself. I'm going to look to you to make a recommendation. As our
You thought you
technical,
were gonna get
as
out
our
of it,
technical
huh?
review agent.
I can make a recommendation as to how many spaces they can fit, and I'd probably do it right now tonight, in that back parking gravel area, but that's probably the only place they've got a place to park.
So I think this, I
So-
think the fact that you
You know,
draft
do you
this
take what you've
report-
got and say it's okay, or do you or do you say, this is what we wanna do, and we need this many?
Well, I think the report, when you put it together, I'm assuming it's gonna come back to the board and we're gonna have an opportunity to go over the report with you. It's not just gonna be, you're gonna do a report and we're done.
Okay, I'm just trying to pull together what we have the opportunity to build for parking spaces and what these gentlemen have suggested that they want.
Okay, well,
If they
do you wanna
do
talk about that particular detail?
widen the roadway to 20 feet, would it be feasible to have parking along one side?
Possibly.
That's what I'd be
Possibly,
happy with.
but that's with with shoulders, because,
Interim, as
you
an
know,
interim
when you
solution.
widen the road and then park on one side, you kind of say, okay, now we got a one-lane road.
It's, yeah.
So,
I mean, you just, I'm not even on interim, I'm just not a fan of that scenario, in that you've got one lane going by and you got doors that open up. Sometimes people see, people don't. It's just not a good, it's not good engineering
It has to be
practice, even on a
90
temple
or
like
at least
this, right?
45s. It has to be 90. It can't be along it.
Well, I would say
Can't be
that
parallel.
the
Has to be
practice,
90s.
for the practice, the
It's
parents
20
could
feet wide.
carpool. If there's only 5 spaces there, they have to be told that, your coach has to know it.
But then it has to be,
That's it.
How are you gonna enforce that though, Tilly?
Well, they're gonna have to cooperate. It's their field.
No, but it's public land. And
It's still, you can put up a sign and says, this is only for 5 cars. Once it's filled, out, you can't park. And that's it. That's,
Hopefully Larry will be able to come up with a
20
reasonable amount
You
of
had a
parking
question?
spaces
Yes, I'd just like to bring up the
in the
fact
parking area.
that we spent an
Big
awful lot of
projected,
money
big
to
one.
have Gail come in, recommended by the town, so we were right.
I don't know, how, Gail recommended by the town?
Yes, it was.
What town people recommended them?
Selectmen, didn't they?
No, I mean, there was, we were asked to have an engineer on site.
right.
and-
But
and-
the Gail was
They
not,
got it.
Gail was
It was
not
not
recommended by
recommended.
anyone from the town that
They
I
were
know,
chosen
other
because
than
they
Park
had
and
been on
Rec.
previous town projects.
Correct, they were
Yeah.
selected
Oh,
because
they
there
were
was already an
recommended,
established
okay, not
relationship.
selected.
No,
okay.
I would
we're
not have recommended them.
We're not in the,
No, I wouldn't have recommended.
we're
but
not in the.
what I'm trying to say
business
is-
of recommending.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, like he brought up, a lot of mistakes. Well, we had the original drawing and everything was okay. Everything was approved by all the boards, and then we went and did it under the guidance of Gail. So any mistakes
Well-
are not ours
So,
as the board, but Gail's.
so that's very important, and what you're saying is very important, and if that's true, you will have documentation to support what you're saying. You will have a contractual relationship with Gail that says you've been contracted to do A, B, C, D, and they have either done A, B, C, D, or they have not. I have not seen any evidence that Gail was out on site after the 11th report. I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know what arrangement you guys, Park and Rec, had or made with Gail. I have no idea what that legal agreement was.
They used to come out every Wednesday, right?
Yeah, we have a contract for the original phase. I don't know I don't know if we actually extended the contract for the second phase or subsequent phase. Original contract was for 12 weeks. So
My gut, which could be totally wrong, my gut is, in looking at the way the construction took place and when the last report showed up, my hunch is that it was not agreed with them that they were coming out after that for this next go-around where things got changed. And they said, we're done, and they stopped coming out. That's my guess. I hope that's not true. I hope they came out and did all that work and did the testing and,
Yes.
yeah, but if they didn't, and they had no contractual agreement to do that, then it's not Gail's fault.
Well, we got bills from them.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
well, we had a contract and it was reviewed by the
Are you all paid up with Gail?
yes.
Oh, yes.
We were invoiced.
We're paid up with everybody.
Can I just say something, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Even though, you know, we're pointing out a lot of negatives and deficiencies, and there's a lot of negative vibes here. I hope none of the board, the folks on the board, on the commission, feel as though we're addressing that to you folks personally or to the commission. This is an outfit that should have been watching to make sure this all happened the right way.
We spent an awful lot of money
and
on engineering.
It's not
So,
anyone's fault. It's
but it's
the engineer's fault.
Well, no,
Hold
no,
on,
in
hold on.
defense, in defense of the engineer, when I'm on the other side of the table, if they were not contracted to perform any more work after that 11th report, you cannot say it was their fault, Harry.
right.
You can't say that.
I also think.
I don't know if we know that.
I also think.
That's what the situation is.
So when we originally did the tennis court, I mean, Dave Showers and I, we didn't have an engineer, so when this project got of scope that you recommended having an engineer, it took the responsibility off us who are not professional to have professionals there. And I was thinking of this on the way home, well, next thing is what's the contract for that professional? We reviewed that, and once again, we probably weren't qualified to review that contract for that, to knowing what the scope of work that they were doing. They said we're gonna do A, B, and C, and D. So maybe the standard operating procedures going forward, town people like us and whether it be the conservation of Camp Dennison, that this scope of work gets feathered by more than just.
Well, okay, just to move this forward.
I totally agree, and I would add to that goes to part of how the form of government is in this town.
Yeah.
And it's broken. And what I mean by that is there are potential issues coming up with Pembroke because they did not come to the planning board because the way the form of government is set up, they didn't have to. Same with Park and Rec. You know, you guys don't have to do certain things. And so I agree with you 100%. It should be a standard operating procedure that there are certain projects that even though they're for the public, by the public, they should go through the same review process that a private developer goes through. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, because I mean,
But you know what we'll hear? The first pushback to that will be, that'll cost money. That'll be the pushback.
Just to
sometimes you got to spend money to save money.
just to move this forward, because we don't know whose problem this is.
And it doesn't really matter.
Well, it kind of does though, because if somebody failed that should have not failed, then there's legal remedies for that, right?
Okay.
So
yep, that's good.
I don't want to make suggestions, but just out of curiosity, have you talked to the Board of Selectmen about going to Town Council to see if there is some liability here outside of this?
I mean, no, I haven't. But I do remember, this is going to be a tough one, because at Barney, I remember the tree company being, their wheels in the mud up to in that corner of in this area. Whether they did any subsequent damage to that area, that road was, done, and maybe, we got a ton of rain when those trees.
Well, and that may be true, but if you are supposed to have a 40-foot dog park and you have a 60-foot dog park, that has nothing to do with the tree guy. So all I'm saying is, perhaps bringing this to somebody that can assess this adequately and say, yes, there's liability, or no, there's not liability.
Well, I know for a fact that Gail was involved in putting in the dog park and the road.
I'm not sure. I have to go back and it's been a while. I mean, I can't.
We had them for so long.
So if you did, they would have issued a report somewhere, and you will have written evidence of that.
Okay.
You will, which would be great.
Do you keep minutes of your meetings?
Yeah, we have minutes from
Oh,
that.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Normally we go to a project. The surveyor comes in, he surveys the area, and we do the work.
Yeah.
The dog park was sort of, we wanted to get something in there
Yeah.
that they could use. So
I distinctly remember being at a meeting with the town planner at the time. What was his name? Howard?
Howard.
Yeah, Gail, the Gail representative, you, Jimmy. Someone else was there. Mr. Manta was there. And I remember we were concerned about things, and the agreement was that the reports would be sent to Park and Rec for the checking of everything. Yeah. And the field reports were also supposed to go to the planning board, to the planner.
yeah, Howard supposed to have a copy too.
Howard might have something
Well,
stashed on
Yeah, we,
Electronic maybe.
you've given us all the latest ones. We have them all. We have them all.
Okay.
And they only go up to 11.
I'm just saying, some of them might have gotten sent to, then maybe there was something subsequent to that, just being sent, not to Park and Rec, but to Howard.
Well, that would have happened, have to have happened after 11. Howard was gone by then.
Oh, okay. He was gone by 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't stress enough, getting from Larry and I, when you do talk with Gail, to please get a copy of their specification manual that they put together for the project. Because in there is where we'll find what they were looking for.
If they were emailing Howard, and Howard was gone,
I don't know if they were emailing Howard at that point or not.
The problem is, John wasn't involved in the he had, Sean was college
He had
kid.
someone else
Right.
doing the overview.
Right.
That's pretty standard
And
practice.
Sean's long gone, and he's on, I think there was another person
Yeah.
too. Sean left somewhere around report 8 or 9 or 10,
Yeah.
and then some other,
But all of those issues are Gail's problems. They're not yours.
right, yeah.
And you go to John Perry and you get the information you're asking for, or Larry will.
Okay.
So,
All
I guess the question is, or maybe it's just that's the end of the meeting
Yeah.
and Larry's gonna do the report.
I'll
as
email
soon
you
as-
when the light's up, so you can
Yeah.
give you a week to drive by and,
Tell Eileen too.
I have a question.
She wants to know
Robert,
about it.
Thank you for your time.
Jimmy?
I have one question. There's a lot of information on here that I'm going to rely on. If I need additional survey information,
yeah, you can contact him and he.
Holt,
Yes.
Bill
Yeah.
Holt, okay.
If you do, would you ask him to clarify the grading? Some of the spot grades, I had a hard time making sense of.
Know which ones? I've been looking at them.
You're okay with them?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, this area of the road is all graded toward the stone infiltration. It's very important. Not grade the other way.
Anyone?
As long as you're looking
for a 5-minute break?
Sure. Motion for a 5-minute.
You second in line?
Are you confident?
Yeah, for this.
Then go to the selectmen.
I will summarize my stuff.
Oh, what's the other question?
Oh, yeah, I just talked to
The
John.
11th.
Yeah, he's
The
still
11th.
Report, the
There
11th.
were 11 field reports issued by Gail.
Oh.
Yeah, I need to be down here.
Most of them are live, and we have one more item on the agenda, which is the proposed zoning amendment for the use and distribution of marijuana not medically prescribed, and we had a meeting with the selectmen on Monday. For everyone watching, we have the public hearing scheduled for April 11th.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So that will be the public hearing here for this issue. And with that, John, do you want to just give maybe a summary of what transpired with the selectmen?
Yes, at the joint meeting that we had on this subject matter Monday night with the Board of Selectmen, I believe that was Monday, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is my third meeting in a row. I'm getting a little evening meeting. Slow start, very strong finish. I think everybody hung in there on both sides, Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board, and we did get a lot accomplished. I think as we were going along, we did learn a lot more than we knew going into the meeting. And what I did hand out to the board members in relation to that meeting is the proposed final draft of the actual ordinance that was advertised for the first time in the newspaper today. So this is 14 days, today is 14 days prior to the date of the hearing. And next week there will be another notice, but prior to the date of the hearing was the first notice tonight. And I don't know if the board wants me to get as detailed as to read that or leave that alone for now.
It might not be a bad idea to read into the record the draft of the proposed bylaw.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that liberty.
Want to read that?
Proposed zoning bylaw amendment to provide for the use and distribution of marijuana not medically prescribed, and the acronym being MNMP. And
Just a quick question, is that our acronym, or
Yes.
is this a standard? Is this our language? It's all right.
This is our
Okay, fine.
acronym. I got a little creative, and rather
Right.
than continually referencing that, it's a mouthful. Even the acronym is. Okay, but the ordinance as it is written reads as follows: to amend the Town of Georgetown zoning ordinances by providing within existing Article 18 regulation for the use and distribution of marijuana not medically prescribed, again, in parentheses, the acronym MNMP, as provided in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 94G, and shall require the issuance of a special permit granted by the Planning Board pursuant to the criteria set forth in Article 18, with such conditions as may be consistent with Mass General Law, Chapter 94G. Further, said MNMP establishments are permitted solely within the existing medical marijuana overlay district. That is, as cited in Article 18, and as shown on the town zoning map. It shall be further stipulated herein that said existing medical marijuana overlay district shall be amended by eliminating the area of this district situated within the Commercial B zoning district.
Okay. Gary, did you want to? Okay. So that, we
We
were
have
at
to
the
make them wait
meeting,
till
so.
last. I just want to point
gonna
out,
wait
we
till-
made you wait till last.
10 minutes of 10.
So I don't have any questions at this point. Does anybody else have any questions at this point?
The only question that I have is, and thank you for reading it, because reading it myself, I tell you the truth, my eyes glaze over so fast. But this is a regulation for the use and distribution, but we're really talking about distribution, aren't we? The whole issue of use of it is tied up with the Cannabis Cafe concept.
I disagree.
No, it's everything.
I use something when I take it and I transform it into another product. I must use it to
But
change it.
It's not, That's the manufacture of it.
You're saying consumption.
I'm saying, yeah, that the
Not use.
the use of it, the use of any object, you know, is not the same as manufacture. It's not the same as construction. It's not the same as transportation or distribution.
And it's not the same as consumption.
I don't necessarily disagree with either of you, but is this sufficient for us to get to the public hearing on April 11th?
Yes.
Then doesn't that
Yeah.
really accomplish what the goal is?
Wait,
And I'm not trying to.
Gonna miss you.
No, yeah.
So gonna miss you.
That is correct.
if I could,
We are gonna miss you.
Thank you.
if I could, in consultation with town council, you know, what I consider, you know, the beauty of the brevity of this ordinance is that what we're saying in its entirety, that the town we're putting forth this zoning amendment that incorporates the allowances of that particular law in its entirety. And whatever is being held up within that law right now, we do know that cafes and the modes of travel,
Right.
distribution are being held up.
Delivery and
You know,
cafes.
deliberately held up, and that's all being done by the legislature, working with the governor, so. What we're doing in this brief ordinance is following the letter of the law as provided by Chapter 94G, as it exists now and as it's being continually, right now, tinkered with.
And
The finality of it, it could take, you know, another 8 months, it could take another couple of years to iron out.
And that's important to say that,
Yeah.
that there is more to go with this.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the most important things that we really verified on Monday evening
Yeah.
with town council, that the whole idea of cafes is right off the table.
Nothing to talk about.
Nothing to even talk about. It cannot happen.
And the earliest that the town would have to take action on that would be at the fall town meeting, and we know that already. The other thing to take into consideration too is that besides it saying, the ordinance, that it requires a special permit, within 94, it also requires for every type of use allowed within this statute, a host agreement.
So there's another check and.
Yeah, and everybody has to really understand that. And town council prescribed not to actually include that.
Right.
That's unnecessary language to include in this because the law provides for it. And as this ordinance is written, all we're doing is following the letter of that law.
You're catching it all.
Just, you have there's a small typo on the last page, J.
On this,
No, the actual bylaw itself.
Not paginated, so it's
Right.
and the public hearing notice?
No.
Is that under
Oh,
visibility?
no, because, you mean this whole big, long text here?
Proposed zoning amendment to provide, you have it's probably an 8-page packet that you provided in this planning packet,
Yeah. What page are you looking at?
the last page.
Last page.
You're looking at what, a local attorney has submitted to us, for consideration.
Yeah, that's.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not.
A
apparently read that
well-informed
well
local
enough.
attorney on the
Yeah,
subject.
Okay. Ignore that.
Sorry.
So, any other discussion on this for tonight?
Well,
I don't think there is anything we need to.
well, come the 11th now, are you going to have the provisions in the special permit?
No, it's going to require a special permit, and the requirements of a special permit are in place.
For medical.
For medical, not recreational.
And those are the ones we're using.
So
You're gonna
are we gonna
use-
change that where it references specifically medical marijuana to all marijuana transactions or something along those lines?
We are not proposing to change anything that exists right now relative to medical marijuana. And the only thing we're incorporating or proposing to incorporate into the zoning ordinance are the provisions that are provided for in 94G. Now, we do have a handout tonight from one of the,
Can I just say that we are changing the medical marijuana overlay district itself.
Yeah.
That's different,
So
yeah.
yeah,
that we are changing.
yeah,
Okay.
that is true,
Yeah.
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 The,
All right,
So-
but
My question though is that the ordinance is written specifically references medical marijuana, right?
yeah,
So,
not medically marijuana,
not medically prescribed.
I think
not
he's,
medical.
I think he's talking about Article 18
Good,
as it
correct.
exists.
The current special permit is the medical one.
Yes.
right.
Okay.
And we're not gonna change that. Are we going to replicate it then? So that recreational marijuana will abide by the same stipulations?
Insofar as a host agreement has to be issued by the Board of Selectmen for all proposed uses within the borders of Georgetown, allowed by 94G. And then,
So I think the answer to your question is no.
So there are not gonna be any stipulations other than the overlay
well,
district?
well, the other,
Special permit requirement for medical and the host agreement.
But none of the stipulations that are in place for medical, in terms of where it can be located, lighting, all the rest of those things?
No, that's the special permit, that falls under the special permit.
Okay, but
Okay,
I can see
but
where
where's
he's
that
coming from,
stipulated?
and I think he may have a point.
no, it's
No.
whatever the criteria is for creation of a Dunkin' Donuts, creation of a manufacturing plant, creation of a retail outlet for recreational marijuana. It will have to go through the already established site plan and special permit requirement. They have to submit an application, they have to submit plans, we have to review the plans as far as landscaping, parking, access way,
Okay.
setbacks, everything. So the same amount of scrutiny that goes into any site plan, special permit application will go into one of these applications. The other thing is too, and it doesn't state it, there is that calculation, that 20%.
Mm-hmm.
The law only provides for not less than 20% of the total number of package store liquor licenses in a town. So if we're a town that's going to allow for this use, we only have to allow for one retail establishment. Now, retail establishment is just one of the many uses. And if you look at the cannabis guidelines, and we can go through all of those uses, there's a multitude of uses allowed within 94G. But there is strict provision for a retail outlet. So you get a package store, it sells all your liquor all your liquors, beer, wine, and hard spirits. There's only provision within this law for a retail establishment insofar as that person, or entity that's allowed, will be selling all sorts of marijuana.
And marijuana products. And ironically enough, the unique part about that is, it is only the retail use that the town can avail itself of the 3% sales tax.
All right.
All the other uses,
Right.
cultivation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
In the important,
Testing.
Wholesale selling? If they sell to a
No.
pot shop someplace
No,
else?
all the cultivators can sell to other
Under retailers, yeah.
other retailers, but yeah, we can't.
but a
The
cultivator,
only, the money shot
manufacturer,
is the retail.
Retail.
right, a cultivator, manufacturer, craft, micro, all these uses that are allowed in 94G. None of those uses can set up a retail shop selling directly to the consumer. Only a retail use, a retailer of recreational marijuana can actually sell to the consumer directly. That's important.
So, John, you're saying by being silent on the issue, the town can limit it to can limit it to one retail.
Only insofar as what the law provides for. That's all.
My it's been a while since I've looked at the law, but my recollection on the law said the town has to take a positive step to do that, to limit that number. By my reading of this, I don't know that we've done that.
It's only.
Which I'm fine with, by the way.
Well, listen, but it's only by the allowances of the Board of Selectmen. A majority of the Board of Selectmen and a supermajority. I guess we don't even know that because the law doesn't talk about it, but, majority of the Board of Selectmen agreeing to a host agreement. And then they pass muster, whoever the user is, whatever type of user is, passing muster with a supermajority vote of the planning board for the special permit. Otherwise, they can't open up.
Remember the letter of non-opposition that the medical facilities had to get
Yes.
from the select board before they could continue their permit with the state and come before us as a special permit? That's now, that's gone. Now what they have is, the gate starts with the Board of Selectmen. They open the gate, they negotiate a host agreement. Only once that has been done, then they can come to the planning board for a special permit.
No, and I
Okay.
appreciate that, but my
Okay.
question is, without specific language in the bylaw that says we're limiting it to 1 or 20% or whatever the number is, is that a third? Can the selectmen hang their hat on rejecting them because there's already one retail establishment? So, let's say one retail establishment, Healthy Farms or whoever, opens up.
There isn't.
What do you mean?
There is not one retail recreational cannabis establishment. There is one medical marijuana.
But they have, I'm just
Dispensary.
talking about.
I'm saying in the future, so let's say Healthy Farms or whoever.
Healthy
say,
Farms
say
has the
ABC
first
company opens up a retail establishment. And then XYZ company comes in and says, we'd like to open up a retail establishment. The selectmen say, absolutely not, we already have our one, we don't need any more. Without positive proscriptive language in the bylaw, is that something that they have the right to hang their hat on? Because there's a possibility for it in the statute. Or do we have to take some positive step in the bylaw?
So I think this is a great question, and this kind of reminds me now, I kind of feel like I'm in Park and Rec's seat, trying to work with Gail. No, and what I mean by that is, why are we, if it wasn't for John, I don't know where we'd be right now with this. Why are we trying to answer these kinds of questions? Shouldn't Copeland and Page say it's A, it's B, and it's C?
So, I agree.
Yes.
100 wholeheartedly. What I took from the meeting on Monday, watching it on TV, unfortunately I wasn't able to stay, is that if the answer to that question is no, then at least 4 out of 5 of the selectmen would vote against it. For me, if the answer is yes, then I'm voting against it. So I guess I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, Gary.
Do you get, the other night I brought up a e-update, KP calls it. Do you get those on the medical marijuana? Like I've been seeing them? Or I mean, on any on any of the issues?
This says Cannabis Control Commission?
No, this is it's a KPE update that comes to the Board of Selectmen.
I don't, John?
No, but
No.
I can tell you that KP met with the Cannabis Commission today.
Well, no, but
Department,
just
but-
answering.
So there will
Gary's
be
question.
probably.
Yeah,
an update.
it's a good thing to follow up, because I asked about, we get things on open meeting law, and at another meeting I asked that particular board, do you guys ever see any of these things on, and I brought it up at one of our meetings recently, that these things should be being shared with all boards, especially if you're trying to deal with the marijuana issue as well as we are, you should be seeing these things.
Yeah.
But just to get back to this subject, though, okay? Within, and I had this discussion with Attorney Eichmann, within that 20% provision that is stated, 2 weeks ago, he was of the opinion that all that means is that a town that's allowing for the recreational sale of marijuana cannot limit the number of permittees of retail use, retail sale of marijuana to less than 20%. but it didn't, it would not allow for a community to stop more applicants from applying and being entitled to it. Right? That's what he said 2 weeks ago. His most up-to-date determination in dealing with the Cannabis Commission is that it doesn't mean that. The language of the law relative to the 20%, if a community allows for the retail sale, it can limit. This is what he said. You can limit it to 20% of the total number of package store licenses, and that being one.
Do we have that in writing from him? If we're hanging our hat on it?
No, but so he's wrestling with that because a lot of attorneys in the state
They're all struggling with it, right?
They're all struggling with that. That part of the law will have to be further specified by other people that are in charge of amending this thing. You can't amend what's already been approved to a point by the people. You can't do that. You have to go through that whole legislative process. So further amendments to this thing are going to have to go through the entire.
So do we not need to have an answer to
I'm
Matt's
saying,
question tonight?
I'm saying the way it's written, in the way special permits are issued, in the way host agreements are issued, whatever the subject matter. Say this was a law that was out to limit the number of pizza shops. You know, all of a sudden pizzas are, you know, the main culprit of obesity in this country. We have to limit the number of pizza joints.
The glutens, it's the gluten.
Yeah, so, you know, there's a new law there, and, you know, the new law specifies that you can't have more than, you're not allowed as a community to have more than 20% pizza shops than you have
Package stores.
package stores. Yeah,
Whatever.
perfect example. Easy one, because we're already dealing with it. And
It has to be a moving target, because if you get 5 more applications for liquor package
Right.
stores,
now, what
your 20% is a lot more
the point
than
I
one.
want, the point I want to make, though, is that in all likelihood, within the zone that this use, the multitude of uses allowed within this law, they're going to be applying for cultivation, manufacture, whatever, testing. We're going to have a lot of applications in all likelihood. There's land out there to be developed. Excuse me, and we'll have applications right off 95. There's a lot of cars out there. There's a lot of business, and that's what these businesses are looking for. You know, easy access to the highway. But when it comes to retail, you know, there is a provision within the law, and it can go through the whole scrutiny. And as Gary pointed out last night, you know, we might have this unbelievable opportunity by this retailer. You know, it's just an incredible vision of this marijuana entrepreneur to create the ultimate retail establishment out there that's going to bring in 3% revenue, and the projections are that it may bring in $500,000 a year in revenue. Well, that's up to the town.
John, I understand everything you just said.
Can I?
No, but
I get the floor for a second. I just want to complete the thought before I lose it. It would be up to the permit granting authority, the host agreement authority, and the permit granting authority, whether or not it gets issued or not. Because it's a special permit. It's not a site plan review, an allowed use site plan review. You can't deny that technically if it meets all the criteria for approval. With the special permit is not an allowed use. It's only allowed by special permit, and the special permit granting authority has criteria of which to deny special permit uses.
And keep in mind,
And
we
that's a
don't get to
fact,
that point.
and that's a fact, and that's in case law.
We don't get to that point.
Unlike-
So
until
you're,
it gets
you're
through
uncomfortable
the Board
with
of
that being
Selectmen.
the check?
Arbitrary and capricious. A town has to, if it's going to deny an application, I don't care whether it's a pizza shop or a pot shop, it can't just say, we don't want this. It has to say, it doesn't follow the bylaw in some way, or it doesn't follow a statute in some way, it doesn't follow something in some way. To say that it would be up to the selectmen to determine at that time, the composition of the selectmen or whatever, whether they wanted 2 or 20 pot shops in town, without some bylaw, I don't think that there would be any sufficient ground to say, oh, you know what, your application looks great in every possible way, but, you know, we've already got one retailer, so sorry, move on.
You don't think that?
How would we
you don't
ever
think
get to that
holds
point?
muster?
Well,
If
not
the
not
selectmen
planning
wanted
board,
to limit it.
selectmen.
Right, if the
Yeah,
selectmen
but we
wanted to
would be
limit it.
legally advised. We
If you
would be-
look at the, I'm sorry, John, if you look at the page 17 of the Cannabis Control Commission, a municipality may restrict the number of marijuana establishments in its community, but it must follow certain procedures to do so. A municipality may pass a bylaw or ordinance limiting the number of marijuana retailers to 20% or more. So
And KP advises us of different ways to do that.
if that's what the town wants, I think it's gotta be in the bylaw. If it doesn't, it's not in the bylaw. I don't know what grounds the selectmen have to say to pot shop number 2, sorry, you're not welcome here. Which again, I'm arguing for, I'm trying to help them on a position that I disagree with, but this, to me, what we were proposing doesn't get us to here.
When they, all right, the way I understand it, reading this G, the selectmen, when they get an application, the client is gonna come in. The first thing they have to do is see if their request for whatever they wanna do is in our zoning. And then go to get a special permit. They can't make a decision without us first.
I don't think that's true.
No.
That's what I read, and
I
that's
think
pretty,
Gary, did you?
Well, I'll try to pass on to this board, I'll give it to John to pass on to you, or see if he can't get it from Mike, that KP thing that I read the other night sort of said some of what Matt was saying. KP laid us out different ways to do it. I did leave as much confused as when I got there the other night, to be honest with you, and I think it's it's a moving target, but I do have a question now. By moving it out of the downtown, we're not disallowing retail, we're just saying any retail now is a special permit?
it's not,
Because I don't know that we have retail in this other area that we're putting it, right?
that's considered use, retail. 9 things that are listed in that G for different uses or development of marijuana,
Yeah.
whatever, that's called the use for all 9 things.
But what John was saying was that they'd have to meet all the other criteria of what's on the books in town.
Yeah.
Do we allow for retail, like down into Jewett Street, Jackman Street area?
That's industrial, some of that is industrial.
So does industrial allow for retail?
No.
So see, what I'm saying is, have we, by making them meet all the other criteria, sort of in a way now said that there's no place in town to have retail?
The medical marijuana overlay,
Allows that?
overlay, has the IB district, it has the CB district, which we're proposing to remove it from, and there's also a section of CC, commercial C as well.
Okay. And that would allow for retail?
Believe by,
No.
yes, retail is allowed in
John,
CC.
does this,
No,
does
no,
this issue,
No.
does this issue
Not marijuana.
question that's on the table right now, does it have to be answered tonight in order for this to move forward?
No, it doesn't, because guess what? Guess what? Within the use tables, okay, there are zoning districts. There's no citation as far as an overlay district. And then within the language here, in the area that we're proposing to allow for retail, it requires a special permit. That's the allowance for retail marijuana within the medical marijuana overlay district.
So that's what gives you,
That,
that would
it's a
give you
special
the
permit.
ability
It-
to allow retail.
It's provided within the
So-
zoning ordinance by reference within this ordinance that will amend, chapter 18.
That's what I was,
Now, to get back to what Matt's
Well,
concern
here,
is,
but here's what I wanna say. I wanna identify first that this question, if it has to be answered tonight, then I'm gonna have to really charge my batteries.
no,
But if
this
it
is,
doesn't have to be answered tonight and it's important, I would like to suggest that we have a meeting where it's the only thing on the agenda, and we have Copman and Page here, and maybe it's with the selectmen again, I don't care, but it just seems like every time we talk about what appears to be a moving target, and it's very complicated, or at least to me. It seems like it's late in the evening, and we're separated. If it's this important and we need an answer to this, then we call a meeting and we get Copman there, and it's the only item on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, may I say?
You know,
We have that meeting. It's on April 11th, and it starts at
Yeah.
7.
Well, that's why I was asking if we need an answer for that tonight.
Well, you know,
But my only-
can I give you, this is the deal, okay? When we left here last night, after all the discussion, that is a major hangup by John Eichman. Your concern specifically, okay? It's a major, I got an email out to him, and I reminded him twice that I needed that language done for tonight, right? By the close of business, which will be 12 midnight. I haven't heard back from him, okay? So whatever the holdup is with that, I don't know whether it's his schedule. I don't know whether he does not really know what needs to be done. But what is for sure, at the 11th public hearing, if an amendment is proposed and it's determined by town council not to be significant enough that we would have to re-advertise, we'll be able to incorporate your concern
Okay.
into the language.
That's really what I was most concerned about, because
Yeah.
if this is
I
not
get-
sufficient.
I get
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. You know, unfortunately, you know, he knows, and we left here in agreement, and he was supposed to get back to me today. Did not. I don't know what the reason is, because he never got back to me, period.
And John,
Yeah.
please believe me, nothing I said was a
No.
criticism of the work that you put into this. I heard what was said at that meeting, and I heard what the selectmen are looking for, and, you know, not being an expert.
John,
but
how,
not being a
so
veteran
John,
match.
how can
No, I'm only
we, John,
being-
how can we make sure that we get what we need from John Eichman in time for the 11th?
In all likelihood, if he has decided in his legal team that's guiding multiple communities
Yeah.
on this particular issue in its broad sense, but in this particular subject, period, we're gonna get his advice one way or the other leading up to
Okay,
that meeting.
what I'd like to know going into the 11th is not the black hole of no response. It's a pet peeve of mine. Either he responds by saying, "We don't know today."
Right,
We
right.
don't know today, or we do know today, and this is what we believe. One of those two responses, and anything less than that is not acceptable.
Here, here.
When you had done the other one where you combined it, you and John, I guess.
Yeah.
Why did that get thrown out?
He thought it was overkill.
That's all.
Yeah.
So we could really confine that a little bit to accommodate both.
Well, what it is that we're only amending chapter 18, which is the medical marijuana.
Right. But
Zoning.
I feel the same way as Matt does when I started questioning this, is that it says use and distribution. Well, when it's distributed, I'm thinking retail. But that's not one of the 9 in that recreational marijuana law.
Well, no.
Distribution.
No, the actual distribution and administration of this aspect of 94G is on hold, along with the social consumption being cafes.
Okay, so-
That's on top. Those 2 items are on hold within 94G. That we'll probably have to deal with that in the fall town meeting.
Not in 94G in the
Ultimately-
regs.
But if
Ultimately,
applicants
the
come
regs, they're
in
off.
July,
Not in 94G.
I'm just saying, no, you know,
section on retail.
yeah,
It's up here.
yeah.
retail, yeah, but not distribution.
Right, the language that
The language is
in
different.
here says distribution, that says retail.
I see.
Yeah.
Right.
May I just,
Can we let it go at that?
can I just ask one question that takes 30 seconds?
Last one.
Okay. So I know what the selectmen feel very clearly on the one retail establishment. Is that how the planning board feels on this issue?
No, I think we could do without it. I would prohibit retail if it was up to me. period.
All right.
So you know that.
I would go exactly the opposite way, with all due respect, Tilly.
Yeah.
And I think it's fiscally the most irresponsible thing I've ever heard of in my life.
And
think
I
that we
wholeheartedly
would
agree,
limit
but I was
ourselves
curious
to this.
how the rest of the board felt.
That we would limit the one option we have of availing ourselves of a 3% tax on sales tax.
Well, that's
For a
where we're
product.
different, Harry. I don't think of the money, I think of the children.
So, okay,
And
so
I'm-
we don't
and
need, so I
Basically-
We
appreciate.
could agree to
Let
disagree.
me finish.
Well,
We
we-
can.
Basically,
It wasn't to debate this.
when I discussed it about when I feel the children's brains aren't completely developed until they're 25 years old. Why would you expose it when our community is so involved with fields, with new school, with turf over in the football field, and now we're talking about spending money on security for the police officer in each school? Why would we expose our kids at all?
They're being
So,
To-
so I don't want to
drug.
debate, this
All
is
right.
not on the agenda tonight, I don't want to get into a debate about this issue. To answer your
don't see it.
question, I don't know where I am at.
Okay.
I
That's fair.
honestly don't know.
I have new information, so, because I'm just trying to see how much of a deal I'm gonna make.
How
on
do
this
you
Sunday.
feel about it?
Oh, I'm with Harry. I think it would be foolish to
Just for the money?
no, because what adults do in their time with a legal substance, to me, the town has no business implementing whatsoever.
So this is another whole discussion,
It
appreciate
certainly
it,
is.
great,
It certainly
but I don't want to go there this
Chairman, can I
evening.
ask, can I make a request? And I don't know if any
A
of the other
request,
board members.
yeah, as long as it's not a
I would
question.
request that, I would request that John Eichman or a representative from KMP that's knowledgeable about recreational cannabis be present at our public hearing on the 11th.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, it's
I think
one
that's
thing
a
to
great
get
idea. Can we do that?
emails and such,
Yeah,
but
and the important thing is, technically speaking, if I don't get something from him proposing an amendment to the language that I read tonight by midnight tonight, right?
Yeah.
The only way to change that will be
On the floor?
on the floor at our public hearing.
Okay.
Right? And for Eichmann to determine, to the best of his ability, legal ability, that such a change is not substantial enough to require a
Okay.
public hearing, or if it is substantial enough that it requires a public hearing, then that's what we're gonna have to do.
we're in
Now,
public hearing.
or
Question.
the other scenario is that at the town meeting from the floor, that it can be further amended. So.
If it gets further amended on town floor, it's done. It's gonna, but I don't wanna go there. End of discussion.
Chairman,
Do you copy your requests of John to Joe Selectman or Mike? Is there a copy in there somewhere?
Usually, it's to Mike.
Okay, so someone
Unless
has a
we're just
record that
having a
you're
quick,
asking these
you know,
questions and.
We're just having a quick banter back and forth.
Okay. So that's the last item that was on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Wait, nope, time out. Before you do that, there's one item I need to put on the table, for you guys to think about. So there could be a situation coming up where Andrea, is going to, work for the planning board full-time and no longer work with the Conservation Commission. And as we're the hiring authority, it's gonna come up to us and we're just gonna have to say yes, thumbs up. So I'm just giving you that, advance notice that that may come up and we will need to respond to that, so that's all.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.